Cool. Good morning, Eric. How you doing?
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good.
Well, yep.
Great.
Pretty good. How's winter?
We had a big storm come through here yesterday, but it wasn't cold enough to snow. It actually got up to like 50 degrees, I think, overnight. But then it's supposed to get real cold. Other parts of the area got like over a foot of snow. It is weird. New Jersey's a small state, but depending on like your relation to the ocean, we had rain and nothing else, and then a whole bunch of snow up north.
It's been pretty mild here. It got cold for us a few weeks ago, but the last week or so it's been sunny during the day, getting up to mid 50s, even low 60s.
Yeah, same here. Same here. It's
pretty
really
mild,
really bright and sunny here, but it's I think it's like about 8 degrees centigrade, which is 45, 46, something like that. But by looking outside, it's false sense of security because it's really sunny. Like you can burn in it around about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, if you stay in it long enough. But it's pretty cold for the first time. My girlfriend loves it. She loves the cold. I hate it. Hate it.
Not a big fan of the cold.
Yeah, I much prefer to be too warm than too cold.
Same.
I was too old before I discovered long johns. For years, I would wear, like one pair of trousers, and then you'd have like 4, 5, 6 layers, like Marshmallow Man on top, like layering things on and hot, and then you just have this pair of jeans and just be shivering underneath. And it took me, and like 3 pairs of socks. It took me years to go, maybe I need 2 layers on my legs and groin as well. Well, as soon as I started wearing long johns, it was great.
Yeah, I've recently discovered them. I just wear them around. They're like wool, basically long johns, I guess. And yeah, they're great. I usually don't wear them under it doesn't get cold enough to wear them as layers. I just wear them standalone around the house.
The ones I like, I don't have them anymore, but me and my friend ended up buying them for the laugh years ago. They're like the all-in-one long johns they have a flap at the back. I remember seeing them on I think it's like Young Guns or one of these movies, and they're wearing these things underneath, and they have this big square flap at the back. You unbutton and drop it. But I don't have them anymore. Should get them again. But
Like an old school. I remember seeing that in like cartoons, like old cartoons, Tom and Jerry or Looney Tunes or whatever.
Right, yeah. My girlfriend's uncle is a potato farmer, and I saw him the other day. You could see his pajamas sticking out from underneath his jeans, because they're all like, I'm finding it cold now. To them, they're in the middle of the North Pole. They just hate it, And he spends the summer, or maybe more than the summer, sleeping outside on the balcony. Outside, and then in the winter it's just like the 2 seasons mentality. They just flip. It's really early, it's still roasting, and then they just flip into winter mode, and then they've got all the clothes on. It's really funny.
So this guy's never comfortable then. He's just beset by the elements, huh?
They're pouring in sweat. Yeah, they're pouring in sweat with hats on to keep the sun off, and then they're pouring in sweat with hats on to stay warm. It's weird, but yeah, it's different for me.
Eric, I see you're drinking out of a bowl today. What's in the bowl?
Oh, it's just coffee and milk. Thing is, I don't have any mugs big enough to contain the amount of milk I like with my coffee. If I'm using heavy cream, you don't really need much because it's so concentrated. But with the milk, you need volume, and the bowl is the only way for me to get the volume I require. Because I use a stick blender to foam it up, so you get the nice head of foam, and that just takes up even more volume. So just use a nice little bowl.
Very good. I actually, it was kind of like an inside joke between me and some friends that I would drink out of bowls instead of cups. And one year, a few years ago, they got me for Christmas a bowl to drink out of. So I find it kind of funny that you're drinking out of a bowl.
Well, I was just thinking there, what he's drinking is really normal. It's quite not a normal drink, but then the container was wild, so it cancelled out the coffee and milk. Seemed
Yeah.
too normal.
Yeah.
But you look like there. I thought you were finishing off your bowl of Kellogg's cereal.
Yep. Like, yeah.
Is that you? Which Kellogg's do you advise people for their nutritional needs, Eric?
Probably Lucky Charms, if I had to guess.
I don't know. I'm not really familiar with their whole with their whole lineup. What does Kellogg's do? What do they produce? Are they kind of like they make everything under different labels?
I just assumed you had them in the States too. Oh, they just have all the. It's like they have all the classic cereals you get in Britain, like cornflakes.
Yeah.
Frosted cornflakes. That kind of thing. They kind of do it all. They're huge.
Like you could name any cereal, and it's probably Kellogg's.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not totally opposed to cereal for some people. I think today we're talking about recovery. I think cereal with milk can be a pretty decent recovery meal for someone who's, just lifted a ton of weight or, done a CrossFit workout or whatever. Anything where you're burning through a lot of calories and a lot of glycogen. Cereal with milk is, not a bad way. It's calorie dense. Not a bad way to get those calories and carbs back in with some actual nutrition from the milk.
It's pretty much all I drank when I was young. I would come in from playing football, soccer, and that was always my go-to thing when I got home. Obviously, because it's the only thing I could quote cook for myself, and then obviously ate meal later. But yeah, I remember the joy of slurping it down. Because you're thirsty as well, and it's good.
Yeah, it was great. Same here. I would eat out of these big metal mixing bowls, basically like a quart of milk and half a box of cereal. And because, you come in from playing whatever. I mean, I was playing football, basketball all the time. And you need that, especially as a kid. A kid needs that energy, They need the constant flow of nutrition to sort of send. So because your body's in growth mode, and any kind of slowdown of that can have bad effects on a child, I think.
So what you're saying is they need regular nutrition breaks. Is that what you're saying?
No, but if they're active, I think there's so much, nutrition breaks.
This is for anyone listening. This is a reference to a tweet that was on the go last week.
Yeah. But I mean,
kindergarten jargon.
Yeah.
Kindergarten jargon.
It can certainly. I think kids just have a lot more leeway, especially they're kind of purer beings, and so when they are craving something like, say, a bowl of cereal, it's probably more of an actual direct physiological need than it is for a 40-year-old man who wants to just eat a bunch of Captain Crunch.
Was there some experiment, Daniel know this if it's true, I just vaguely heard it, that they put all different types of food in a room with children and let them take what they wanted. It was a certain age, I don't know the age, and then in the beginning they would take all the chocolate or whatever, the stuff you'd expect them to take, and then over a while it became more balanced. They naturally went to pick the things that were more balanced. Is that true?
There's a study like that I know of. I don't remember the chocolate part. That may have been one of the foods, but it was basically babies and toddlers. So
right.
Babies who are old enough to kind of sit up and put stuff in their mouths. And this is I think it was in the 30s, maybe 1930s. So the foods were definitely a lot more nutrient dense. So they put stuff like liver down and raw butter and cod liver oil, like little capsule, little shot glasses of it. And they had all sorts of fruits. They had cooked grains like oatmeal. They had vegetables. They had meat. They had steak. They had meat on the bone. So basically a really, really nutritious diet. And then they asked the kids, they just put them down and let them choose. And depending on all the kids ate very differently, but all of them hit all the required nutrients. And even kids there's a kid who had low-level vitamin D deficiency, like he was starting to get rickets, which is a bone disorder caused by low vitamin D. he was just like going all after the cod liver oil to basically fix. He didn't know what any of these things were, but he somehow knew he needed to eat this in order to fix some deficiency. So yeah, that's kids for you. You know, kids kind of have I think if you just kind of let them go and listen to them, they'll usually point you in the right direction. But again, that was a different, kids growing up then, these toddlers probably hadn't been exposed to all the sorts of stuff that kids are exposed to now, whether it's commercials or, just junk food as a baby. So I don't know if the same thing would play out the same way today with kids growing up today, but the potential's there.
Yeah, if it's dependent on them kind of somehow sensing the nutrients they need, and if the food we have now is less nutrient dense, it probably not. It's possible that they're not able to do it now. Yeah, no, and then on top of that, then you get all the toxic stuff and everything else later. And I suppose a lot of you get a lot of the wrong. It's like an acquired taste. A lot of the wrong things we eat are acquired. Like you acquire the taste for them that you probably didn't have to begin with.
Yeah, and I think a lot of food companies have food scientists and engineers that understand how the brain works and how the brain senses and desires certain nutrients and flavors, and then they hijack that and figure out how to make their food target all these same brain pathways to make us crave these foods and think, our body thinks they're getting nutrients when really they're just eating a bunch of garbage. So it's pretty insidious, and so yeah, we're up against a lot now, but
well, you got to keep on sneaking those egg yolks in.
You do. You have to slip them in there.
What are you drinking, Kevin?
I have a selection here. I have obviously English breakfast tea with milk.
And
Not quite a bowl, but it's quite a big mug. And then I have sparkling water with lemon juice, and then another one of normal plain water, still water. But
and you got options.
Yeah, I was drinking green tea with a concoction earlier, but I didn't like it at all. I had too many things going on. I had obviously green tea, and then I had a couple of squirts of magnesium chloride, which I don't drink a lot of, but I squirted some of that in, and then I had ginger, lemon juice, and obviously honey. I'm forgetting to mention honey now. It doesn't even need mentioned. It's obviously in, and I didn't like that at all. So that's why I have a selection there. Don't know why.
Very good.
What about you, Keith?
This is just black coffee today. So Sunday night into Monday is my fast day. And this is just black coffee so as not to break the fast. It's been doing it for a long time now. I think one of the guys on Twitter, Michael M1, he started a fasting trend, and I've been doing it pretty much every week since September, 1 day a week, 24 hours approximately.
So Mondays taste like coffee to you?
Monday only tastes like coffee until I eat later on in the day. So yeah, I think yesterday my last meal was about 4 o'clock or so. So if I make it till 4 today, that'll be 24 hours. I try to do at least 24 hours. Sometimes I don't get that far, and other times I'm able to push it a bit further than that. But I like it. It's a good. It almost feels like a reset for the week. So even if I had been eating really good the week prior, It's just always starts anew. And if like around the holidays, especially when I was eating like crappy foods, it was just it always got me back on track to eat well the following week, because it's enough of a break that you can readjust and kind of get into a good pattern. So the constant, like the fact that you're introducing that every week, or the fact that I was introducing that every week, a fast, I mean, just allowed me to reassess what I was eating. Should I need to change it back to a more healthy way? So I've been enjoying it.
And also, if you're trying to make it a habit, if you're trying to be disciplined about it, if you get it done at the start of the week, now it's done.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, that's right. I didn't think about it that way, but it's true. And it seems like it's easier because on like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, lots of times I'm either out with friends or going out to eat or something. It's just, I want to enjoy that. I don't want to not enjoy that. So Monday is the easiest day to do it. So we were going to talk about recovery today. And I know, Kevin, you brought it up initially, the idea of recovery. Was that for a specific reason?
Yeah, but to tell the truth, I can't remember what the reason was because it was a few weeks ago. It was it was some kind of psychophysical insight that I had into when I was trying to recover from. I'd been playing around and I'd kind of hurt myself a little bit, and then when I was recovering, and then there's like a point, like not a turning point, but there's like a moment where you can either just go back to normal and start doing what you were doing, or you can wait a little bit more just to not push it too much. And in that moment, for me, it depends who's in charge in that moment, who's louder, my mind or my body, to use those words. So like sometimes your body's ready, but your mind turns out your body is ready, but it turns out your body's ready, but your mind's not, to go back to doing whatever the activity is. And sometimes it's the other way around. Your mind wants to do it, but your body's not ready yet. And I was just, I hurt myself. I got a bit better, then I hurt myself again, and it was going back and forward. And I was noticing a kind of dance between my mind and my body about when and what I could do, whether I was just being lazy, whether I was scared, whether I was being intuitive and all these things. And then I realized I just knew nothing. I had no idea. Like it was, it just seemed to be random. So not random, but potluck, whether I was starting to do things again at the right time or not. So it just got me thinking of how do you know? How do you know when you're ready to? How do you know when you're recovered? How do you know what stage you're at? Because a lot of it's obviously really subjective. And I mean, my whole work is people's feelings are lying to them, and there's their sensation. They're being duped by their sensations all the time. So I'm constantly aware of that. And then, but obviously sometimes they're not duping you. So, and there's only one of you, so you can only kind of test it once. So what are your thoughts on that?
Eric, you have thoughts or no? Or you're still contemplating?
I'm still thinking about that. I mean, I've just been thinking about all the kind of recovery methods that there are. I mean, there's one way you can know sort of objectively. There's like you can measure your resting heart rate in the morning, like upon waking. If it's elevated, then that indicates there's some sort of, there's still sort of a stress response going on. You can also do the, if you've been practicing any breath holding, like Keith and I took the class and we've been doing some. If you do, I think it's when you wake up, after an exhale, see how long you can hold your breath comfortably. And if it's, you would have had to have established a baseline prior to that, like what's normal for you, what's a normal breath holding time, and then just do it when you're every morning when you're after an injury or after a hard workout and see. And if it's worse, if you can hold your breath for a lot less time, then you're probably not quite recovered. That's one way. That's just a general way to assess the state of your nervous system. So that's, and then there are certain devices you can use, like you can test your heart rate variability. It's like a heart monitor. Yeah, so those are objective ways, but those aren't really quite intuitive, which is I think what you were asking.
It was it was the clash between them both, because there's like two kind of parallel ways of assessing it going on in my mind at the same time. And it was never clear which one was right, which wasn't. And then on a more sort of practical note is I noticed that I don't know very much about topical magnesium. I know this is the rage, obviously, on Twitter with a lot of people now. But I'd from what I was doing, I won't go into the details of what I was doing, but it was like weird movements, and I kind of twang something on the side of my back, and not bad, but it was like an annoying niggly. And so I did what I'm hearing everyone doing, I plastered on the topical magnesium, so soaking in it and stuff. And it was already getting better when I started doing this. So I was doing that, and then it was already better, and I just kept doing it, and I just kept the habit of doing that for another week or so. And then it started hurting again. And then I stopped, and then it got better. And then I started putting on more again, and then it hurt again. So I came to the conclusion, and this is just a guess, is, I've heard people say that, if you put it on, it helps the muscles relax or release or something like this. I mean, again, you might know more about this than I do. That may be the problem, because if you just release one area or relax one area, then there's going to be a compensation somewhere else to make up for that. So you're kind of making these side effects, these knock-on effects from what you're doing. And for me, what I needed was actually more type of tension in my back. I needed it been lengthened by being pulled in two different directions to lengthen it. And the magnesium was making it, I'm guessing, is making it want to release and relax when that area didn't need to do that. So it was actually preventing me from making the larger readjustment I needed to get better. But I had the kind of one-dimensional, this bit sore, add magnesium to this bit. It's like a kind of magic pill for this bit. And people definitely have magic pill mentality with magnesium. Not everyone, obviously, but a lot of people do, I've noticed. So I'd be interested to know like your thoughts on that, and anything specifically about magnesium would be good for people as well.
That makes total sense. A couple of weeks ago, I tweaked something in my back, and then I had these back spasms for a few days after. And basically, I realized that back spasms are just hype. When the muscle just really tightens up to an uncomfortable degree. And I realized what it was doing was, the body's trying to stop you from moving in that area, because there's been some injury or some weak link in the chain on the spine, and so the muscles surrounding that area tighten up so that you don't use that area, so you can protect that the spine and let it heal. And so, and I realized, I just had to like take it easy and not try to work through it. And it sounds a lot like what you discovered for yourself, because when you're just, usually like the distribution of all these salts throughout the body are kind of regulated by processes inside the body. But when you kind of go above that and just slap it on your back directly, so it just immediately goes into that muscle, you're kind of bypassing that that feedback mechanism inside. And I can see how that could be problematic. I think that's good for a lot of people, but in your case, maybe, like you said, your back was supposed to be tight. Yeah, I've had the same thing.
To use an analogy, you could think of like a Rubik's cube. So like if you You like you think, okay, that the blue bit needs to get round to this place, but as soon as you move the blue bit around, you've moved the white bit, and the white bit's gone out of place now. So like, so similar to that, if the muscle's a certain way and then it changes shape, something else is changing shape it has to, and then something else, and then the whole system's going to change shape. And it's more like it's not that the magnesium is the problem. It's more the thinking about my thinking about it is the one dimensional add this to this problem over kind of mindset. Think it is just completely linear like that. And like on a unrelated note is, because I know a lot of people put the magnesium on the back of their neck, which I do that as well. Again, it's not relatively recent. I've been doing this, and people immediately say I felt the effects straight away. It's great. Day one, I've experienced all these great things from it. To me, that's probably. I've heard people say that. I just don't buy that. I think they just are enjoying the rubbing their neck. Their neck was tense, and they put it on, and they've massaged their own neck, so they're benefiting from the feeling of that. Not the magnesium yet. So what do you think about
that? I don't know about that. Personally, when I apply it, I usually don't massage it in. I just kind of slap it on.
Okay.
So I don't know if that would be a confounder, the massage, at least in my case. I mean, what I noticed from that is the dreams get a lot more vivid. If I just kind of rub a little bit on my inner forearm or like my rib cage, and it's not.
Okay.
I'm not massaging. I just kind of apply it before bed, and then I notice it's a huge shift in usually in the sleep. I never notice a whole lot waking. It's not like I apply it and then I'm totally blissed out. But so I don't know. I think some people maybe they're more sensitive to it, or maybe they're just kind of more sensitive to the placebo.
That's what I was going to say. There's also just that kind of placebo or just simply mind over matter. You decided this thing is going to work, so now it started working. It doesn't mean the thing doesn't have potency. It just means that your mind is also involved in it, and you can't really separate them, which we know anyway.
It's totally valid. It's a valid way to treat yourself.
I mean, even if the thing has no active, even if the thing did have no active ingredient, if the placebo made it work for you because you believed it did, it still works. It's like it doesn't work in the way that maybe you think it works, but it's true, it works. But maybe if you knew why it was working, it would no longer work. So like if you knew that it was because you believed it, then it might not work, or it might.
So you just totally fucked a bunch of people listening to this.
I know.
You're gonna ruin the placebo effect for them.
Well, I think maybe that's why homeopathy, is that how you say it? Maybe that's the thing of that. I mean, I don't know much about it. It's not my thing. But as far as my understanding of it is, there's like a tiny, tiny amount of the ingredient in it. And for whatever reason, they say it works. To me, that's just like the mind, the mechanistic mind, the modern mind of the person has a mechanism now that they go, well, that's what does it. Now I know how it works. It'll work for me. But really, they're just triggering placebo. Yeah. Just triggering the placebo as if it's 9. Even I'm saying it like this. But it doesn't mean that it still works. It might not work for them if they knew why it worked. So it's better that they don't know. So so I've just ruined people if this works.
I mean, if you look at it, those things never work for the skeptics,
Yeah,
like
it makes sense because they don't believe in the mechanism.
Yeah. Like the hyper rational people who set out to disprove it. They do. It doesn't work for them. And I think it's totally consistent.
Yeah, because they've done there's lots of experiments on what you'd call extra sensory perception kind of stuff. And whenever there's a really skeptical person is part of it, nothing works for anyone, even the people it was working well for, or it doesn't work as well. So obviously the skeptical person says, it's because I'm there and you can't get away with your bullshit. I'm here to catch you. But then they're like, no, it's kind of it does something to the belief structure or whatever it is. So both people, it just again leaves it mysterious. There's no way to prove it one way or the other. Both people are convinced they're right. That's funny.
Yeah.
What ended up working to get past that injury? Kevin? It was just, you said stretching out your back?
It was just general recoordination and stopping. I stopped doing I was doing quite a lot of coordinating multiple movements.
Strange movement was,
well, it's hard to describe because it's like many sub movements all happening at the same time to change the structure. And I was really working on it a lot. And then I got carried away. I'd made a change. So there was like a visible different structure on the, I use video and it's definitely different and it was kind of staying. So then I got carried away and I was like, oh, I wonder where it's more springs are happening now. I'll start playing with dumbbells. So obviously I had the dumbbell and I was like doing all different things. And Keith had been talking about that week about swinging dumbbells or swinging weights or something. Or I'd seen him swinging his crazy medieval mace, something like this. So I was getting carried away. And because of the springiness, I was kind of doing more than I needed to do. And something was tender. So again, it's like you change the structure. So say there's like, just for the sake of argument, say there's like 10 parts have changed the relative positions have all changed slightly. 8 of them might be happy in the new position and 2 of them aren't, but 2 of them are stuck with it now because the 8 have done it. So those 2 it's probably those 2 parts that were tender in the new position that just needed time. But then I just started getting carried away and just, like anyone does. And it was totally fine. And it's like I was doing this intensely for a week or so, and then just woke up in the morning and it was like something not right. It felt a bit stiff, and then just something just changed when I was sitting at the computer. So I stopped running. All I had to do was stop going running, and obviously I wasn't doing the lifting. And then, these are like small weights, by the way. These are not like, I'm not like a big heavy weightlifter at all. And then I just went back to the restructuring, and it just seems to be giving the parts time in the new placements is all it needed. Because it's unusual for you to change the structure that much and straight away is unusual, because usually you're just doing it a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and it's just kind of this gradual change that's happening to you, and you sleep and you wake up. This is something that was like pinged into a different shape, not instantly, but in real time. So it's kind of stupid actually if you think about it. It's like just some parts are fragile, simple as that. But again, this is a mind-body thing, because I'm like, my eagerness and the curiosity to try different things and stuff was jumping way ahead of the body. And the body was, other times I might have not tried doing those things because my body wouldn't allow it. So like Keith, when you were doing playing with all different ranges of movement with a piece of equipment or whatever, obviously you can injure yourself doing that, but you're building on the skills and abilities that you already have. You're like deepening it or widening it. Whereas I was trying to just jump straight to step 3 rather than without going through step 1 and step 2.
Yeah, I've done that before too.
Okay, I'm sure.
And, the thing that I wanted to mention is like, and I think I've said it before in some past episode, but it's almost as if you are giving your body a new memory, or that muscle group a new memory. It's like, this is how we're going to move now, and it needs time to adjust to that. So you're introducing more or a different type of movement, or you're asking a different thing of that muscle, and it's got to try it a few times and work up to it before it could actually get into that position or be used in the way that it wasn't being used previously. So to do it too quickly, or to ask too much of yourself too quickly, is you're more prone to injury, just because it's like it's that muscle is not competent at that movement yet. So it does need a bit of working up to. The one thing I wanted to mention about recovery, I guess we could break it down into a few different things. I mean, there's like passive recovery. Obviously, you just take a break. There's active recovery, where you would be like stretching or doing less intense exercise. And then there's also like there's recovery from exhaustion, recovery from injury, recovery from illness. So I don't know if there's a common theme between all those. And I think what I do most of the time is that if I feel something is off, I'll just give it a little bit of time. So if there's like if I experience like a pulled muscle, I won't entirely immobilize it. I'll try to keep it moving, just because I want to stimulate blood flow to that still, because I think that's really important for healing. But then that's also kind of like a touch and go type thing, because if you're moving it and it's really painful, obviously you might want to not move it for a while. But as far as what I do is I'll try to move it as much as I can without too much pain. Discomfort is fine, but if it gets real painful, I'll stay away from it. But then I also do, in terms of, I try to just prevent injury altogether. And I think it's almost like a proactive form of recovery, where I'll do stretching before and after a workout, or even every night before bed, or just things in general that you can do that actually prevent that any type of strain or damage to your muscles, or it's making your body more bulletproof towards any type of movement that you're asking of it. And I think I ran the gambit on a bunch of different topics there, but I don't know if there's anything of interest that you guys think you want to hone in on.
I just remembered the thing that helped my back the most, and I forgot about it, was sitting on the floor more. So sitting on the floor at meals, sitting on the floor between things. Yeah. So like I have no problem with sitting on chairs at all. I've never used the back of a chair. Just I don't need them anymore. But I made a point. I was being more, because I wasn't going running and I wanted to run. I would every time I wanted to run, I felt like going out running, and I was thinking, no, I better rest the back. I would just sit down, and I made it was kind of active. It was kind of like active recovery. I would sit on the floor, and I would do it in such a way that I was stretching things in a certain way, and I was doing movement. Like I'd be moving I wouldn't let my spine flop back to the curved out back. I would have it moving in the other direction at the same time, and it seemed to do something. There was like there was the active movement of moving my spine in a way, but kind of the ways I was sitting was passive, I suppose, because you're allowing the weight of the pelvis is falling back with gravity. So there were half of it was sort of allowing it to release and fall with gravity, pelvis falling behind you, and then the kind of active of doing a movement at the same time, and that seemed to make a big difference, and it also kind of made me feel better about not being out as much.
Yeah, when you mentioned, I think movement is definitely key when you're recovering from any kind of injury. I follow pretty much the same method as you, Keith. Whenever there's been some sort of a physical trauma, I just try to restore movement as quickly as possible, and just avoid. So, two key things: I avoid pain, like the sharp kind of pain that is unmistakable, and then I also try to maintain normal technique and form. So if you sprain your ankle, I find the best way to get back is to just start walking on it as soon as you can, and walk as slowly as it is required to maintain sort of perfect walking form. If you're hobbling around with a limp, I think that will probably impair your healing, and it'll also entrain some bad motor patterns. But if you can just walk as slowly as you can with full range of motion when you're walking, that seems to really speed up the healing process. Because I think what you're doing is you're basically just you're just telling your body that you can, you're proving to your body that you can actually still do the movement. I think that's what the pain is the pain is just like this big blunt brute force object that it's doing to keep you safe, to keep you from doing further damage. But if you can kind of demonstrate that no, I can do this movement. I'm just going a little more. I'm just going really slowly, and I'll speed up a little more maybe. And then I think that speeds up the healing, and it basically your body can devote more time to actually healing than to just sending the pain signal, because it knows that, okay, I can trust this guy's not going to fuck anything up, not going to do anything stupid. And that's really worked really well. And that's, it used to be the protocol, and it still is. If you go to your average doctor and you say, oh, I hurt my knee, they'll say, oh, take some Tylenol and ice it. But now, a lot of the top guys are really moving away from that. They're moving more towards compression and movement for the treatment of acute injuries. And that's it's exactly what you were talking about, Keith. So
yeah, the I to stop movement would mean you're just not getting you're not sending the signals to that area anymore. You're not stimulating blood flow to that area anymore. So just in my mind, like logically, that doesn't make sense for an injured area. You would want to kind of keep those things active. Again, not so it's painful, but just so your body keeps connection to that part of you. Or your nervous system stays connected there, your circulatory system. There's a couple tools, I guess, I got for recovery that I guess they're popular. People know about them. I use them, and I just like to try them out to see what all the fuss is about. So recently I got like a red light or infrared light therapy. I've been using it pretty consistently. Not that I've been injured or anything, but I haven't really noticed anything from it. Maybe you got to use it for a long time or consistently for a long time. Some of the other things that I use that I do find are helpful are scraping tools, like I think it's called gua sha or something like that. Mine are stainless steel, but I think you could also get them in jade or some type of stone. But it's a tool that you would just run over your skin, and it's supposed to help break up little adhesions in your fascia and that, and little knots and all that. And then I also use like a foam roller, lacrosse ball. Sometimes I'll just use like the corner of a wall or a doorway and be able to get like that edge into like certain areas of my back to loosen it up. So yeah, those are all just tools I use fairly consistently. I mean, I don't do those things every day, but I'll use them occasionally, and especially if something's sore, tight, just to, again, keep, even if I'm not introducing like a muscular movement, like moving my arm or something to loosen it up, I think using a tool to introduce some type of movement to that area can also be beneficial for recovery. And like I said, it's not only if you have an injury, but also to help prevent an injury, to keep those areas loose so you don't have, you're not forcing muscles that aren't meant to do a movement to help out with that movement. And then that may end up causing them to be tight or something along those lines.
Yeah, just one thing that people can think about if they do have an injury somewhere, like if a body part is hurting, this is something you both alluded to, but rather than say if your knee's hurting, you're not gonna, take the scraper or the foam roller or the lacrosse ball to your actual knee. What you want to do is explore the tissues above and below it. That's just, and that goes for almost any body part, because usually there's something in the surrounding area that's sort of pulling on the tissue that hurts or throwing it out of alignment. And so usually the issues lie in the tissues above and below it, not the actual thing that's hurting. So that's just, I've noticed a lot of people make the mistake. You know, they just don't think about their body like that. They haven't really been given the tools, or they've never learned about how muscles work. And so they just, something hurts, they're like, oh, that's the problem, that thing. But just a simple, and this doesn't take any special training. You just say, just look at so if your knee's hurting, usually it's, you know, roll your calves, you know, your quads, check your hamstrings, and you'll find that things are like, those might actually be really tender and tense when you say, if you press into it with a foam roller. So I know I've helped a fair amount of people. I'm no expert. I'm not trained in this at all, but I've just learned these from smarter people than I, and it seems to help, you know. Just something anyone can do. You can explore your own body and kind of like rub above and around the areas that hurt, and it might resolve the thing that actually hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was this is maybe a year or two ago. I hadn't been running a whole lot, and then one day I ran for like a couple miles, and then there's a tendon that goes over the side of your knee, and it got really it hurt really bad, and everything is inflamed. And I think it's where your IT band actually connects to the side of your knee. So to relieve that, it was actually like up on the back of my hip, like on the top of the glute is actually where I had to massage to relieve that tension all the way down on the side of my knee. So like anecdotally for me, like that was exactly right. Like if I was to sit there and try to put pressure or massage that tendon where the pain was, it wasn't actually going to help anything. I had to do a little bit of research and figure out where to actually apply that pressure or massage to bring a little bit of relief to that pain.
Yeah. That's where going, you know, maybe going to a sports masseuse or some sort of really skilled body worker can help. Almost like just going for one session and asking them lots of questions, and you know, they'll say, oh, if this is hurting, then, you know, yeah, I'm gonna rub this, and then you can do that later on your own. You know, it's not any magic that they're doing, but they just have a ton of knowledge. They know exactly how all the muscles interact. So that's a worthy investment, I think. A couple sessions with a really good body worker. And then you can
I had a pupil who had shoulder pain for years, like a long time, you know, like 15, 20 years. And he'd just gone back and forward. He tried everything. So he would go to like all the different types of body workers, basically just tried everything, all the fads over the years. You know, he had plenty of money, so he tried everything. And most of them would just go straight to the shoulder area, round about the shoulder, and then it would feel better for a while, sometimes for a few weeks, often just for hours or minutes, or, you know, left the place, and then it went back to normal. And so like you know, I basically was the last resort, weird guy on the internet. So he did some sessions with me, and so I don't work like you were saying there, Eric, about where the pain is. I don't go straight to the place at all. I actually teach people to ignore the parts that they're having a problem with by paying attention to the relations of all the parts around it, and well, all the parts. And so basically I just had him work with. He was in a lot of pain when he was at the computer. He was like he was in finance, so he was at the computer with the 2 or 3 screens all the time, and I just had him give him some rules about moving, where to put his elbow, what to do with his pelvis and his elbow, which are either side of your shoulder, if you think about it, either ends, what to do with them, and not think about the shoulder at all. And then he was just working with that and giving him some other rules connected with that. And then he just, one week he just appeared and said, you know, it just went away. It's just gone, you know, like years of all the money and all the time. And it was like it was just something he needed to do. He just needed to coordinate 2 movements either end in a different way. And then the shoulder in the middle sort of was in new conditions, and it stopped hurting. So, I mean, that's cool for me as a teacher, but it's really frustrating and annoying to know that people are doing that right now. There's like, you know, like decades of just think it just becomes normal. Something's wrong, you go and get it fixed. You know, you kind of outsource these things to other people. They come in and do it to you. Obviously, there's a place for that stuff, obviously, but Often it's what somebody's doing. They just don't, but they don't know what they're doing.
I would
He didn't know-
imagine.
he-
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say he had no idea what he was doing with his pelvis and his elbow at the same time. You know, it's like I sometimes joke with people, so do you have a rule for what you're doing with your elbow when you're at the computer or whatever? And obviously they don't. Do you have a rule for what you're doing with your, like I'll give them specific parts in the pelvis and I'll say, do you have a rule for where you place that when you sit down? And they're like, no. And obviously they don't unless they're weird. And then, but then by not having those, they'll just do their own thing. And by doing their own thing, you're just at the mercy of what happens. And this guy was a perfect example. Like everybody was just going straight to the shoulder, more or less straight to the shoulder, not directly on the spot, but around it. And it wasn't the shoulder; it was where he moved the elbow. And his habit was moving the elbow, like the tip of the elbow, and his rotating his pelvis in a certain way at the same time without realizing it. And they just had to have them go in opposite directions, and that was it. So
Wow.
easy.
Cool.
So easy to know and figure it out. Really hard to just start doing it all the time because that's just two movements in amongst all your life and all your other movements. Really, it's not simple. It's not easy, but it's simple.
Yeah. Eric, I know you said you didn't have too much time. You got a little where you can go soon.
I got about 20 more minutes.
Cool. One thing I want to ask you was how does like the nutrition or the food you eat, how do you work that into any type of recovery? Like, is there a specific, or should you eat more of certain things if you have an acute injury, or if you're just dealing with exhaustion or anything along those lines? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, acute injuries tend to increase protein requirements. Some of the best research has been in burn victims. People who have horrible burns and they're recovering in the hospital. They need they need to really increase their protein intake. So they've had really a lot of success just pumping them full of whey protein, putting in 50 to 100 grams extra a day will just increase their healing times. 1 second. Sorry about that.
So when do they is that just them eating protein, or do they also do they inject amino acids and stuff?
It depends. I mean, if they can eat, they'd be eating, but often it's through a tube, But I mean, that same concept applies to anyone. Basically, if you have structural damage, you need to consume all the substrate for building new structure, and protein is probably the most important. If it's a joint injury, you definitely want to increase collagen intake, gelatin. So you can just take gelatin or collagen supplements, or drink bone broth, eat stuff like oxtails and chicken feet, things that are high in collagen, skin, bones. And then as far as fatigue, and I think a lot of fatigue happens. A lot of people get really, really tired, I think, from, it's maybe not popular to say in Twitter, but inadequate carbohydrate intake.
Yeah.
I think if you're, there are genetic differences, of course, there are personal differences, but generally, a good rule of thumb is if you're burning through carbohydrate, if you're doing really intense activities running sprints or heavy weightlifting, if you're burning through glycogen, you should probably eat carbohydrates just to replenish it. A lot of people make that mistake. They get really stuck on being keto or carnivore. And, the thing is, the end result is the same. They're making carbohydrates through the protein they eat, or you can just eat it directly. And I think it's a lot gentler on most people's bodies to just eat carbohydrates rather than manufacture them from amino acids. It's just a little more efficient, and frankly, I think it's a little more enjoyable,
I don't think it's unnatural either, because a lot of time has passed since humans started eating carbohydrates. It's like, I think there's often a conceptual mistake people are making sometimes when they think that these things shouldn't be eaten. I mean, potatoes were being eaten a long time ago. Like hunter gatherers now, they spend a lot of time. They're like it's one of the tribes. That's half the time the women in the tribe spend digging for tubers. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They eat some of them raw there. They cook some of them, eat them there, and then they take the rest home. It's not like this is like old, and they found like evidence of this. I think it's like a million years. It's a long time anyway of
exactly.
potato eating. So I mean, it's like it's actually just ludicrous to think you could just not eat these things. If it works for you or not, that's different. But like the philosophy of it as a sort of you're an idiot if you eat these things kind of thing, just doesn't stand up.
Totally. And people, you can be on a ketogenic diet, you can be in ketosis and still eat carbohydrates without even exiting ketosis. It's if you create enough of a glycogen debt in your muscles, through hard training, and then you eat, a couple large potatoes. If you're still gonna all those carbs are gonna go straight to your muscles. You're not gonna even exit fat burning mode. So people can still stay philosophically keto, in pure, while eating carbohydrates. It's frankly all benefit, So I think I guess the way to put it succinctly is, if you earn your carbs, you should eat them. It's not just about only eat carbs if you earn them. It's actually, no, you have an obligation, I think, to your body. If you've earned the carbs, if you've created this debt of glycogen, you should just eat them. And this happens probably, I think men can get away with it a lot more, being really low carb and still maintaining energy throughout the day. But I see it seems to hit women a lot harder, because they have a natural sensitivity to any kind of perceived caloric deficit, just because they have to be ready to, biologically, they have to bear children. And that's a really energetically intense process. They need to have, so the women's bodies are very, very sensitive to any kind of perceived deprivation, whether it's fasting or too much exercise, too little food, cold exposure. All that is, women really have to be a lot more careful on average. There are outliers, of course, but so I've heard from a lot who, they're doing, they're following this perfect diet. They're eating all this meat, they're fasting, 15 hours a day, and yet they're getting fatter. What's wrong? It's, well, you might not be built for this. And so so that's one way to think about recovery is, recovery is ultimately a balance between stress and recovery. That's what recovery means. You want to apply enough stress to force adaptations, but you want to actually recover to realize those adaptations. And windows of adaptation and recovery are going to be a lot different for different people. So
yeah, then it comes into the whole sort of your ancestry and where you're from, and it's going to be complex for different people.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it comes back to the same thing of people find something that works for them and then they just hammer it to everybody else, that everyone else has to do this thing. I don't know why humans need to do this. I really don't have this at all in my mind, in my psyche, that when something works for me, I have to convert everyone else to it. It just doesn't happen to me, or at least a long time since I've had it. So when I see it, it's just peculiar. But it's useful actually for everybody as a whole, because when the people go gung-ho on one thing, they just do everything and they test everything and they take it to its extremes, and then everyone can learn something from it. So it's not a bad thing it may have problems for them personally, but it's not a bad thing in the whole. It's healthy for the whole people, I think. But yeah.
I have a question for you, Eric, about something that I noticed. If I do a hard workout, I'm sore the next day. I'm sorry, if I do a hard workout and then like later on in the day, I'll have like a bunch of collagen, um, as like a supplement. And then the following day, I'll be sore, but I find I'll also feel like I'm tighter as well. Like I feel like my muscles are tighter, and I don't know if that's something that's kind of in my mind or I'm making a connection that's not actually there, or if there's something to that. Um, but that is something I have noticed a few times. Is like I do a hard workout and I have collagen, I feel sore and tight the next day. I'll do a hard workout, no collagen, and I'll feel sore but not as tight.
Just tight. That's interesting. I don't know. I can't really imagine why that would be the case. I know. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the timing of the collagen makes a difference. I know the best way to really incorporate dietary collagen into like our tendons and ligaments is to eat it prior to a workout. That's the only research I've seen. There have been about 3 or 4 studies where you about 30 minutes before a workout, you take, I want to say it's 20 grams of collagen with like 90 milligrams of vitamin C. It's just a protocol that I don't know why they developed it. And that,
I think most collagen has vitamin C in it.
it does.
At
Yours?
least the ones that I get, I think it does have it in there.
Oh, maybe it's for that reason then, because
Yeah.
often make products based on studies that they've read about. But yeah, and then, what they do is they put some sort of a tracer on the collagen so that they can track it through the body. So you
Right.
eat it and they can track where it goes, and eating it before increases the collagen that you eat ends up actually in the connective tissue that you stress during the workout. So I don't know, maybe try eating it before. See if that
Yeah.
makes, maybe the tightness is some sort of an indication of that assimilation of collagen. Maybe it's, of healing, of restructuring, or maybe it's just a bad signal. You shouldn't do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Here's something you could try, Keith, is to instead of going by the feeling and the tightness, is to I'm going to repeat myself, video yourself, and then cut images, and then like put a graph, like like graph paper image over the pictures, and then measure the distance between parts and see if there's the parts on either side. So it depends where the tightness is, obviously, and see if they actually are further apart and maybe pulling it tight or not. And then you have some idea whether, it depends how much it is, whether you can see this on a screenshot or not. But then you'll be able to see if it really is being pulled tight or whether it's just imaginary. Not imaginary, but it's not like, doesn't matter. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that's crossed my mind is it could just, that's the connection that I thought of, but it could be something else that like some other type of variable that I haven't taken into consideration that's causing it too.
So have you guys noticed anything to do with when like recovery times changing based on what time of day you work out, that kind of thing?
Time of day?
Said? Have you noticed like if they change the variables, does your recovery change based on what a certain time of day you might do or different times of the year?
I haven't noticed anything with that, although I would say if the workout is if the timing of the workout is impacting your sleep, then that would definitely affect your recovery, because I think sleep is probably maybe the single most important factor in recovery. But as to just the timing itself, I can't think of anything. I haven't noticed anything personally. Keith?
Neither have I. But I rarely work out in the morning, like say before 10 or 11 o'clock. I'll mostly work out in like the midday, early afternoon. In the summertime, sometimes I work out later on at like 7 or 8 o'clock, just because it's lighter out. But
same for me.
I haven't noticed anything, any difference in terms of recovery based on the time of day. I never really paid attention to it either. So nothing has ever popped up to make me question it.
Maybe it's more relevant the other end, like if you do something too quick, if you're too quick to do something in the morning when you're stiff or whatever, maybe you're more likely to get injured.
Sure.
Or like if you do it late and you're tired, you're more likely to make a mistake. Just things like that. To be less careful in some way that at some point you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah. That's definitely true. I mean, I've never really liked morning workouts. I've never really gotten into them. And I know there's some, at least, I don't know if it's been studied or if it's more just like kind of bodybuilding lore, but the idea is that, you shouldn't do anything heavy, like pulling movements involving your spine, like deadlifts early in the morning. You should really warm up. Like you shouldn't just hop out of bed and then pull 400 pounds from the ground. Because you've been lying so much, and something with fluid in your spine, not leaving you more susceptible to injury. And I've definitely noticed that I just feel less. You're not as lubed up when you first get out of bed. You're not all warmed up. Your body isn't ready. So I think if you just spending the day, just letting time pass so that you're moving more throughout the day, and then you're going to be more warmed up. Like I have a friend. I have a lot of friends who are trainers. I go to this gym frequently. It's like a personal training gym in this other town. So it's kind of like at any one time there were maybe 8 or 9 people working out there because it's all one-on-one clients and coaches. So this guy's he just turned 50, and he's probably in better shape than me. He's just kind of, because he's always on the move. He's always, on his feet, helping his training his people, doing little movements, like showing them how to do an exercise. So he's kind of always in this warm up mode so that he can just kind of launch into a heavy lift at any moment, because he's just always moving. He's always warm. So I think that's probably the ideal way to train, just kind of throughout the day with little things peppered in here and there. At least if you want to stay injury free.
Yeah, I agree with that, to build it in. I mean, that's something that I like to do. That's actually, so I started these little like weekly challenge. They're not really challenges. It's just like suggestions, but I call them challenges. But this is, I guess, the second week I'm doing it. But I've done it in the past just among like my friends and stuff, or we suggest something, you do some type of movement or whatever, this suggestion every day of the week. And it's not going to replace your workouts or anything like that. They're not that strenuous. You can break it up however you want it, but it gets you moving throughout the day and keeps you moving throughout the day. Like, for example, like this week, I said, last week was 100 bodyweight squats a day. This week is 25 jumping jacks and 25 push-ups a day, and just Monday through Friday. But it's just something, it keeps you warm, keeps you active, and it's not that strenuous or anything, but it helps just reduce the amount of sedentary time you have throughout the day. Which is, I mean, it's just kind of akin to what your friend does, Eric. He's always kind of moving around. He's probably not straining himself or pushing himself outside of a few workouts here and there, but just that base level of activity, raising your floor on that is just very beneficial.
And also, if you're continually doing like a low intensity movement, like regularly all the time, you're always ready for it. If you can suddenly do a much higher intensity one, or like a heavier weight or whatever, than you would expect without having to progress all the way up through. You couldn't do it every time, but you could over in fact, there's a whole program based on something similar, isn't it? It's forget the guy's name. It's the Russian guy. It's like it's a book called Naked Warrior. Do you know the book Pavel? Yeah, it's something like that. I think he calls it like greasing the groove. Where you're doing the I think it's like one arm push-ups or whatever it is, and you're building up all the time, and then you can every once a week or once a month or something, you test your marks or whatever. But it's the doing them way below your max regularly is which makes your max increase, something like that. Anyway, I don't know enough about it. It's a long time since I did it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And there was a similar thing that helped me with the sitting on the floor. To be honest, it was the constant. I was constantly doing it. I was like making a practice of going sitting down every, probably every hour, every half hour, every hour, and it was the ongoing movement of it. I mean, it sounds like not moving, sitting down on the floor sounds like a non-movement practice, but obviously it is. And
when you're sitting on the floor,
sorry?
You're constantly making all these micro adjustments when you're sitting on the ground.
And and I'm trying to do it more, have more range of movement in one way with the leg, knee, sometimes with the knee closer, sometimes try to get the knee flatter, whatever it was. And that was just, I would classify that as active recovery for the back. So that's something useful for people because you're wanting to protect your back when you hurt it. And sometimes it's the thing you're doing to try and protect it is what's preventing it from getting better. I think that's the true in my case. And then by sitting down, I was forced to stretch it and I couldn't do that. And it just went away.
Yeah.
So like recovery, it's not linear, and it's also not obvious. Sometimes it's counterintuitive.
Mm-hmm.
You guys got any other little favorite tricks or tips for people?
Let's see.
Temperature, Eric. What do you think about that? Heat and like cold, either like cold showers or ice bath, or obviously you saunas and stuff.
Well, it depends. So when you're talking about recovery, there's are you recovering so that you can get out and keep performing, or are you recovering in terms of adapting to the movement and getting stronger? Because so for instance, you'll see a lot of pro athletes who so they sit in ice baths like in between, like after games, like in the midst of the playoffs. So cold exposure like that, like sitting in an ice bath, can increase your get you back on the field faster. It can help you, get back up to max output, but it also impairs things like strength gains, endurance gains. So in the short term, like say you're playing in the playoffs or something, and you have to play tomorrow, then you'll want to take the ice bath because you just got to get back out there. It'll reduce inflammation. But if you're just training, if you're just a guy who's trying to get healthier and stronger, you'll probably want to avoid the ice baths because that'll let you get back to the gym, but it will also impair your ability to pack on muscle, to make strength gains and things like that. So you have to think about what your goals are when choosing hot or cold. Although, the thing with heat is it's good for everybody. Heat increases recovery and it also improves gains. So like pre-workout sauna is pretty nice because it literally warms you up. So your tissues are a little more pliable. You can do movements. And then after, it'll actually increase your adaptations to the workout. So you'll get fitter and stronger.
Yeah.
Red light
the one place I've noticed the benefit of heat is doing a hot yoga class, because you can go so much deeper into like the stretches and movements than you can otherwise just at a regular room temperature. When the room's 100 degrees or whatever it is, you have, at least I've found that I've had a lot more flexibility or range of motion under those conditions. So I guess you're just able to elongate all your muscles and get that full range out of them. So yeah, heat, I agree, is very beneficial for whatever, working out, recovery. It's just a nice thing.
Yeah, I think cold would probably be useful. Like at least if you want to do cold, I would at least wait 6-7 hours after a workout to do it, or just do it on your off day. Because cold is still good for you. It just kind of makes you generally more resilient and tougher. But the people who lift weights and then just hop in the ice bath, I think they're just selling themselves a little short. They're losing some gains. So, unless they're doing some sort of a competition, like they have to get back out there and perform right away.
What about like contrast showers?
I don't know. I think that's in my case, that seems like a nice way to ease your way into cold exposure. You know, you kind of you do the cold and then you have the warmth waiting for you. But I don't know if if it has any special effects. You know, I haven't really looked into that. I haven't done it too much. I've just done the shower thing where you turn the hot water on, then the cold, and flip back and forth. But I'm not really sure. I know a lot of people swear by it. I guess they do it in a lot of cultures, you know, like Northern Europe, a lot of sauna with ice baths.
Yeah, or they jump into the water outside. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's probably something to it. I think there's something to everything. Anything that kind of produces like anything that's kind of hard to do, that's kind of shocking to your system, I think it's probably good for you, you know, within reason. There's some utility, you know, even if it's just makes me feel alive, that's worth something, you know.
There's definitely a big psychological benefit to doing those things, or remaining calm while doing those things is actually the bigger psychological benefit, I think.
Yeah, that's the problem with the cold showers people doing in the morning. I suggested on Twitter that people should record themselves in the shower under the cold shower, but then it kind of went wrong. So if people want to do that, it's up to them. Don't send me your video. But I noticed that I was contorting myself, like tensing up, and it was really like counterproductive. I think I was doing it at that point because I'd heard your testosterone went up if you had cold showers, but it wasn't going up. I was less erect by the time I finished the shower. So it's up to people.
What are some other things? So I do have to get going soon, but I mean, there are just some other things people can think about with recovery is beyond what we've already talked about. There's, I mean, sunlight's also pretty big. If you have some sun available, I would go get some. Even working out in the sun can improve recovery because vitamin D is really important for testosterone production. Testosterone is really important for recovery from strenuous activity. You also get the nitric oxide boost, so you get better blood flow when you're in the sun, and that'll speed up the healing of tissues. And then also just, being in the sun is nice. It feels good and it reduces stress, reduces cortisol. And cortisol is another thing that opposes testosterone. As cortisol goes up, testosterone drops, and so that'll impair recovery as well.
Here's a good little psychophysical exercise for somebody. Get one of these house plants that goes all droopy when there's no sun. So take out just enough, so away from the sun. It needs one of the ones that needs the sun, and then it droops when there's no sun. Look at it, and then put it back out in the sun and watch it come back to life again, and realize that that's part of what's happening to you too if you're not getting enough sun.
Yep.
Like, think of this yourself as a sort of in a vegetation kind of way. I found that really useful. To every day I'm reminding myself, I need to get out and get into the sunlight more than I would have. And when I had COVID last year, that's what I was doing. I was out in the sun. Even this February, I was just out, minimal clothes, even if it was cold, in the sun as long as possible. And I recovered much quicker than other people around me that had it. Don't know if it's that, but obviously it's.
Was there you have an urge, like was something, did you have to fight yourself to get out in the sun? Did you want to stay inside?
When I had COVID or now?
When you had COVID.
Oh, COVID. I don't really remember. I definitely didn't want to take I didn't want to take my clothes off because obviously I was cold. I was cold. Yeah. But once I got into it, and as long as it was only a certain time of the day, it was hot enough. And I always felt better after that. But part of that is the emotional boost, the less tension, the feeling like it's also just feeling like you're doing something. You know, like because we're housebound. That was when there was proper lockdowns. You really couldn't go anywhere, and you know, the government let us go. I was allowed to go within 900 meters of the house for one time a day or something like this. I bet I wasn't allowed because I had COVID, and which makes perfect sense. Luckily, I had a balcony, you know, so like a lot of people don't or don't have anything. It's horrible. But the sun, definitely. See, like even the way I'm saying it just now sounds like, it's like the emotional thing is just this extra on top, but that's a central part of the healing and the recovery. It's not separate, you know. It's not like a happy. It's not like a cherry on the cake. It's right in the middle of it.
Yeah. To keep your spirit high is, if you're recovering from something, is definitely a big factor. And I think that goes along with the sun, or even going for a walk in a park, or if you're able to get to like a forest or something like that, walk through the woods. Anything in nature can also be beneficial for recovery, if not adding to the physical aspect of it, just emotional, mental well-being. Those are all important areas of recovery that not everybody pays attention to, but they're all components of getting better after injury or something.
You know, they're physical too. All those emotional changes, you know, there's physical stuff happening, you know, hormones and neurotransmitters.
It all feeds back into each other. It's all affects each other both ways. People tend to have like their favorite pet recovery level. You know, some people like the emotional level, and some people like it's all physical, and they need to have specific, like there's to be actual things, mechanisms that they're taking and stuff to make them feel better. But really, you need a combination of all of them.
Yeah. I was asking you about whether you wanted to go out in the sun or not, because I sort of have an idea that viruses can affect our behavior. You know, they can kind of change. You know, to preserve themselves, they can kind of direct us to out of activities that would, you know, hasten their demise, or towards activities that would increase their spread. You know, because I think there's some evidence of, say, some STDs increasing promiscuity, you know, like making people more sexually active. Like it might be, I don't know if you experience this, Keith, but
were you out on your balcony spreading your STD? No, sorry.
So I'm wondering, it'd be interesting if, you know, being infected with COVID would, you know, you kind of want to, it tries to keep you out of the sun. You know, it tries to keep you more cloistered so that you don't do the things that would speed up your recovery. I don't know. It's just a very half-baked theory I have based on some minor evidence, but mostly
makes sense. Yeah, there's lots of there's like parasites and stuff that just make the animal behave in a completely different way. However it works.
People too, that there's a some type of cat parasite or something that people get when they're changing the litter box, and it makes them angry and unstable.
Increases entrepreneurship too, apparently. That's what I've heard. Pretty strange.
I don't get that, but that's right.
Yeah, it did. I think it's I think what it, like it in mice, it increases it reduces fear. So the mice are more like, they don't get scared away by the smell of cat piss anymore when they're infected with this parasite. So it, you know, they're obviously going to be eaten more often.
Are they scared of the angry cat woman who has this parasite now?
I don't know, but apparently, like, I guess it's more common. The infection with this parasite that Keith is talking about is more common in entrepreneurs. I don't know. You know, I haven't looked at it. I don't know if there's probably more to the story, but that was an interesting correlation. Yeah.
Is it because they're more likely to have cats because they require less? They're busy at work and it requires less.
That's one possible explanation right
time
there.
than with a dog. Yeah.
That's the thing. That's why, you know, a study can't really. I don't think they can really control for that, or they would. You know, So that's why you always got to take these things with a grain of salt. That's a really good idea. I hadn't thought of that. That might be it. Or it could be less fear, more outgoingness.
Owners.
I don't know.
Or maybe they've just read on some website that a good productivity tip is to eat cat food or something. Cat litter. That's the latest thing. Tim Ferriss has mentioned this summer, so they're all doing it now.
Microdosing cat litter.
Biohacking, yeah. So anyway, we forgot to mention our sponsor for this episode, which is Fancy Feast cat food. So,
yep. I'm about to sit down with a bowl of Fancy Feast myself right now.
Yeah, same. Mine is salmon flavored.
Okay, I'm having the venison. Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
A little bit. Yeah.
They hooked you up. I only got salmon. Yeah.
Well, guys, I have to run right now, but it's been fun.
Okay, up a hill.
Yeah.
I will be running up a hill.
Good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's one thing I've been doing. Last week, I just been sprinting up a hill twice. There's a pretty like a quarter-mile long hill near my house, and one day I pulled over after dropping the kids off, sprinted up, and then did it again, and I've been doing it every day since. It's really nice. I recommend that. If anybody has a hill nearby, you should go sprint up it and just do it. It doesn't take much out of your day, but you'll see some big benefits. It's already getting easier. I'm starting to do 3 now, and takes about as much exertion as 2 used to. So you can get pretty big results pretty quick just doing things.
Cool. That's a good note to end on.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Hill
Okay.
sprints. That's everyone's. All the psychos are assigned to hill sprints this week.
Also,
Yes.
running downhill as well as uphill. Downhill is good for recovery if you have something to do with the eccentric movements from running downhill. So it's useful.
Downhill psycho sprints.
Yep.
Yeah, but
We
don't send us your hospital bills if you fall and crack your head open, people.
No, we don't have any money anyway to pay for it. So
my insurance sinks in the med. It doesn't get any further than here, or here for that matter. Anyway, we'll cut that bit out.